Welcome this morning to Larger Than Life Radio. I'm Andre Dre Keys Johnson.
And I'm Jamal Cobb, and I'm excited to be here today.
Yes, today we're going to talk about this book that Mr. Cobb has out called Nuptial Nuggets. Nuptial Nuggets. Jamal, tell me a little bit about this book.
Well, this book is written for people who are married and did not take the time to get, maybe you didn't take the time to get proper premarital counseling, or people who are getting ready to get married. They're on the cusp of marriage and they may not have found a premarital counselor. It will help them set some things in order prior to getting married.
Okay. So I'm going to ask a few questions and jump right in here and ask, so what inspired you to write Nuptial Nuggets?
As you know, I've been through a lot of things in relationships in life. A lot of people don't know I've been through a divorce. I've been through during my divorce. During my first marriage, I went through infidelity, and I had to deal with certain things. And while I was processing those things, I can remember when I was still in the military, young guys would come up to me and ask me questions like, what about their relationships? And they kept asking me relationship questions, and I was taken aback because I was going through myself, and they were coming to me, and I was pouring on them, you know. And 10 years after that, the Lord just inspired me to write this book to help people in the process of getting married, to try to help them to avoid the pitfalls. If you look at my book cover, it's an interesting book cover because I have a yellow light on the book cover saying proceed with caution. You know, we got the red light that says stop, the green light that says go. So I put a yellow light, a couple driving through the yellow light so you can proceed with caution, because marriage shouldn't be taken lightly, and it's very important that you get proper premarital counseling prior to getting married.
And that is so important. You touched on something very important, that counseling. I know we're living in a time now, people do not want to get counseling. They think they can figure things out themselves. And a lot of times you touch in counseling, you touch on things that you normally miss. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that you miss. And could you go on and elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, the reason why you should get counseling is twofold. One, like you said, you touch on things that you miss, and two, you have a mediator who don't have sides. So the husband, the fiance, the groom is coming with his idea of what marriage should be, and the bride is coming with her idea of what marriage should be, and then we have what's called the Bible. I know people don't like to talk about it, but we have the Bible, and the Bible got its own definition of what marriage should be, and you're blending all three of those thoughts together to make a union, and that counselor is the mediator in between to help people see the light on their own issues and their own stuff, and help them compromise in a way that they can have, where they can gel and become one. The Bible talks about two becoming one, and it talks about one flesh, not one spirit. So two becoming one flesh, meaning that you're mending these two fleshes together, and everybody coming with their fleshy ideas of what marriage should be. A woman began to dream about her marriage from age 5. Man don't start doing that until he's ready to get married. So now you got this woman coming with a fairy tale dream, and a man coming with a little bit of reality, and you meshing those two, and you got to make decisions, hard decisions. How much you gonna spend on your wedding? Have you talked about that? Have you talked about how many kids you're gonna have? Have you talked about how you're going to handle your finances? This is the book that addresses all of those issues. Wow. That will help people, even if they don't get a marriage counselor or pre-marriage counselor. This book can help you navigate through those issues and help you have the conversations to have those issues. To solve some of those issues.
Wow, that's well said. There's also a chapter that's in your book that's called Family Matters.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
One thing I've learned through my marriage and through others' marriages that I have come in contact with, the numerous of people that I counsel, my wife and I, people don't know, but my wife, I'm going to give a shout out to her, Dr. Josetta Cobb, who is the number one counselor in Columbia, South Carolina. She is dynamic, and I tend to take a back seat and let her lead. We do premarital counseling together, and I take a back seat and let her lead the counseling session because she's that good of a counselor. But one thing we learn is, to answer your question, is that you're not just marrying that person, but you're marrying the person who they have become, and they became that person because of who molded them and shaped their thinking and shaped their cultures. When you get married, you're basically bringing two separate cultures together. So you're bringing one culture that was done in one house. I remember somebody said, I think it was my daughter, said, well, we both black. What do you mean you got separate cultures? No, it's not a racial thing, but a culture is those dynamics that make up the marriage. You might have grew up without a father. So now you got to bring that dynamic into the marriage because you really don't know how a man is supposed to be in a household. So you have to learn that. Everything is supposed to be learned through osmosis. Right? While you're in the house, you're supposed to learn it by watching. I was in the house. I was fortunate enough to grow up with my father. My father never sat me down and said, son, this is how a man is supposed to act. I was able to watch my father and learn how to take care of the way he took care of my mother, the way he treated my mother, the way he took care of the family. I was able to learn just by being in his presence and seeing him go day to day. He didn't have to sit me down, but when the father is not there, now it has to be taught.
Wow.
You can't learn it through osmosis over 18 years. Now you have to be taught between 6 or 7 counseling sessions.
You're right. And since we're on that subject, it brings me to my next question. You also have in your book about a fatherless nation.
Yeah, a fatherless generation.
Oh, a generation. That's right.
Yeah, we're living in a time that I don't know what the exact statistic is, but many people are growing up without the fathers in the home. And we would be naive to think that a mother can handle father duties. If a mother can handle father duties, then why do the child still feel empty that the father is not there? The mother do the best she can. We got some women out here holding it down, doing a wonderful job, and I salute them, but do not wish them a happy Father's Day because they can never be a father. Now the dynamics of this fatherless generation, it affect men and women different. One, like I said earlier, I'm supposed to learn how to be a man by watching my father. So some of us, dad is on the other side of town. And we watching daddy on the other side of town, not taking care of kids, right? Going out with this woman this week, this woman that week, this woman that week. And now I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm emulating my father, doing the same thing, making babies, not taking care of them, and the cycle goes on and on. So we have to deal with that. And then a woman, the one thing that a daughter learns from watching her father is how she should be loved.
Wow.
And if she don't get the proper love from her father, she's going to search for it somewhere else. And that's why it's so vitally important that even if you don't get married, stay in your child's life. You can still, that father-daughter relationship is the foundation that will cause, is the foundation for that daughter to become a wife. Right. That love, what's the word I'm looking for? It's non-conditional love that you have. That's the type of love that you should be bringing into a marriage. It's a non-conditional love. So that's what that fatherless generation is. It's helping the couple navigate through, if one of them grew up without their father from single parenthood, how they should bring about healing some of those wounds that have been opened from that father not being there.
Jamal, you've said some great things. One of the things that I want to talk about that's in your book as well, it talks about each other needs. Could you explain when you talk about her needs versus his needs?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you two of the needs. Cause I don't want to get a whole book, but her needs and his needs. The number one need for a woman is affection. You know, they need affection. They need stability. You know, so if you are a good provider and you provide affection to this woman, that's what she needs. She needs the hugs. It's like if you go, your car need gas, right? So if your car need gas, that's not a want for your car. That's a need for your car. So if you go to a gas station, right, and you pull up to the pump, and the pump said out of order, or the gas station said we out of gas, what do? You go to another gas station. The problem is when we can't give our spouses what they need, when I can't give my wife the affection she needs, she's going to start searching innately somewhere else to give. So I have to learn how to give her affection. Now let me flip that. Number one need for a man, believe it or not, in a marriage is sex. People be like, when I say that at conferences and I say that on preaching or different platforms, people look at me like I'm crazy. But if a woman give a man sex and tell that man he can go run through that brick wall, that man's going to believe that he can go through that brick wall. It's just naturally like that, coming from a man. And let the men say amen. Okay, because they would tell you the same thing. But the men know this. So, but here's the major problem, though. The major problem, in order for a man to want to be affectionate, he needs sex. In order for a woman to want to have sex, she needs affection. So if any one of you slack on your duties, the other person is without what they need. So a woman should never withhold sex from her man, and a man should never withhold affection from a woman, because when you do that, they feel like it's something missing. But that's the major problem, because a man don't want to give affection if he's not having sex, and a woman don't want sex if you're not being affectionate towards her, and that's a major issue in a marriage.
Makes sense. There's a song that came out not too long ago. It's been long enough for us, I guess. But New Edition came out with it. Can You Stand the Rain?
Yeah, we might have to do a part 1 and part 2 of this, because I know time is getting down. But Can You Stand the Rain? That deals with Can You Stand the Rain actually deals with this when problems come. Sure as we live, we're going to have problems. You can be up today, down tomorrow. And it's not so much problems like infidelity or anything like that. But I'm talking about just natural problems from living, a loss of a loved one. My wife, unfortunately, lost her brother last year.
Right.
I didn't have the words to say to her. And I said, in my next book, I'm going to deal with that, because I didn't know what to say. I knew I loved her. I knew I had to be there for her, but I could not open my mouth to say anything. I could only give her a shoulder to cry on. It would have been very easy for me to walk out during that time because of what she was going through emotionally, what she was going through spiritually, what she was going through mentally at that time. But no, I can stand the rain. I said for sickness and in health. When things come about, I have to try to be there for her and be that shoulder for her to cry on. So that chapter in my book, and I wrote that long before this incident happened last year,
right.
But that chapter in my book really helped minister to me during that time. It's not time to walk out, it's time to draw close. It's not time to turn my back on her. It's time to say, baby, I know you're going through something. I don't know how to help you through it, but what I want you to know is I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to be here and help you through this. And is she all the way there yet? No. She have good days and bad days. There's some days where we listen to music. We riding in the car, listen to a song, and tears just start to flow because she's thinking of her brother. But I know those times. I just hug her, and I'm there for her, and I just continue to love on her. And that's what we got to learn sometimes. Like, all the time, marriage is selfless. It's not about you and your needs all the time. You make sure that other person's needs are met.
That's right.
It's not a give and take. It's a give and give. If I'm giving and she giving, nobody should give out, because when I'm giving to her, she should never. The only time you feel bankrupt is when you're doing all the giving and you're not getting in and receive.
You said a couple of things that I tell you I want to just kind of piggyback on, and one of the things that you brought out was about when you have a situation where when you're talking about can you stand the rain. I was sitting there thinking while you were talking, and I was saying, well, in that instance, we have to understand, especially when you're talking about being married, that we say we say it in our vows, through sickness, through health,
better or worse.
And this is why it goes back to what you were saying even before then, why counseling is so important. And we have to also understand, especially in churches, in black families, or just in general, even when you're married and you don't went through counseling, sometimes for situations like that, you may need more counseling. You may need to see somebody about that. And don't be too quick to down counseling. You need counseling. Sometimes that's because, like you said, you had got to a point where you did not know how to handle that, what to do. You improvised.
I didn't get to that point.
Yeah,
I was at that point when it happened.
Yeah.
I never was at the point where I can offer some help.
Right.
I just didn't know.
Right.
So you seek out professional.
You seek out professional. And that's so important that we understand that's why we have people in places like that, so that it can help us in our marriage. And nobody has all the answers. Nobody. And that's why you seek help. Spiritual counseling, and even professional counseling. Okay, I just wanted to say that as well. And so, what about future endeavors as yourself, as far as your book? You plan on writing anything else?
Well, there's several